My name is Talia Mercer and I'm 18 years old. Most people think a quiet house is a happy house, but that's not always true. Sometimes quiet can feel empty instead of peaceful. It's the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you don't exist. It's the kind of quiet that sits in the walls and crawls into your chest until you want to shout just to prove that you are real. But even if you do, no one looks up. That was my childhood. I was the middle child. In my family, that meant invisible. My sister Anya, the oldest, was their pride. She was perfect. She was a cheerleader, had a big shiny smile, and made my parents so proud they bragged about her all the time. Then there was Ezra, the youngest. He got attention no matter what he did. If he spilled milk, they would just laugh and give him a hug. He could do nothing and still get smiles and pats on the head. Me. I had to take care of myself. My quietness blended into the walls. I didn't exist to them. When I was 12, I thought maybe if I did really well at school, they would love me. I worked hard and got straight A's. Nothing changed. I cleaned my room until it sparkled. I helped with chores. I even made dinner when Mom worked late. I hoped for one thank you or one proud smile. But it never came. Anya got flowers for making the cheer team. Ezra got a shiny new Xbox for barely passing his grades. Me. I got the same quiet that swallowed me up. Birthdays were confusing. Sometimes there was a card. Sometimes there wasn't. When I turned 16, they forgot completely. We were too busy, they said. That night, I sat on my bed and stared at my phone, hoping for just one message. None came. Their neglect wasn't loud or mean. They didn't yell or slam doors. It was quiet. A dull, constant ache that made me feel like I didn't matter. I cooked, cleaned, rode the bus, and just existed in the background. Eventually, I realized that I could disappear for days and they wouldn't notice. It didn't hurt anymore. It just confirmed what I had known all along. I was curious, so I decided to test it. On my 18th birthday, I stayed completely quiet. No cake, no hints, no reminders. I waited to see if anyone would notice. Breakfast came and went. Dinner passed. Still nothing. Not a single, happy birthday. That evening, I packed a small bag. Inside went the money I had earned from my part-time job at the bookstore. It wasn't much. Just enough for a few weeks of rent. That night I left. No note. No slammed door. I just walked away. My phone stayed silent. No calls, no messages, nothing. At first I checked my phone constantly. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they thought I was at a friend's house. But days became weeks and nothing changed. Strangely, that emptiness didn't hurt me. It made me feel free. If I could disappear and no one cared, maybe I had never really been part of them at all. That night I made a quiet promise. If they didn't bother to look for me, I would never return. The first weeks alone were hard, but they were mine. I found a small apartment with Ronan, a friend's acquaintance who needed help paying rent. The floors creaked with every step. The ceiling had brown water stains. The old heater made strange noises like it might stop working at any moment. But the quiet there felt different. Not sharp or lonely, just calm. For the first time I could hear my own thoughts. It was strange and wonderful. I got a job at a diner nearby. I worked the breakfast shift and sometimes I filled in at night when someone didn't show up. It was greasy, messy, and loud, but it felt real. Hard work meant something there. Nobody compared me to Anya or Ezra. Nobody cared about who I was related to. They just cared that I did my job well. That was enough. That fall I started community college. Financial aid paid for part of it. The rest came from my tips at the diner and long weekends filled with instant noodles. My life was busy and exhausting, but I had purpose. I didn't talk about my family. When people asked, I let them guess. Some thought I had grown up in foster care. Others thought I had been kicked out. The truth, that my family had forgotten me, was too heavy to share. Sometimes small moments would surprise me and hurt a little. A mom hugging her child at a bus stop. A dad helping his daughter with groceries. Those moments reminded me of the love I had never gotten. But then I remembered the silence. They didn't lose me. They just let me slip away. That realization made me feel stronger. That was when my real life began. The first morning I woke up somewhere that wasn't home, I had to blink a few times to remember where I was. Pale sunlight slipped through a bent window blind. No dishes clattered in the kitchen. No TV murmured. No footsteps crossed the hallway. Just the sputter of the radiator and the quiet hum of the city. For a moment I waited for that old hollow ache to come back. It didn't. The quiet felt alive and it was mine. Ronan tapped once before opening the door. "Hey roommate, are you still breathing?" he teased. "Barely," I said, sitting up. He smiled. "Coffee fixes everything." "There's some in the kitchen," I said. "Don't mind the chipped mug," he said. "It builds character." That was Ronan. Honest, kind, scruffy. The apartment was old and cracked, but it felt safe. The door locked when I wanted it to, and the key was mine alone. I brushed my teeth in the small bathroom that smelled faintly of vanilla soap and floor cleaner. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone messy, tired and worn, but calm. That calm felt earned. That afternoon I walked to the diner. They didn't care about my short resume or my past. They just wanted someone who could move fast, smile through the rush, and carry buckets of iced tea without spilling. I learned quickly how to slide eggs onto a plate without breaking the yolk, how to keep coffee topped off, how to treat each table like it mattered. For months I smelled like fryer oil and mop water. My sneakers squished with wetness that never dried. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. Hard work meant something. There was no hidden score, no empty promises. When I got home at night, I collapsed on a second-hand futon I bought for $40. Through the thin wall, I could hear Ronan playing guitar. His lazy, soft notes filled the quiet better than words ever could. He wasn't much of a talker, which was fine. He showed kindness in small ways. A mug left to dry. A note on the fridge that said, "I ate your fries. I'll buy more tomorrow." In that tiny apartment, no one apologized for existing. We just figured out how to fit. That fall, I started community college. The campus had low, plain buildings full of people trying to restart something. Everyone carried more than books. Some had second jobs. Some had toddlers. Some had aging parents. Some carried unfinished dreams. Just showing up was an accomplishment. I took intro comp, statistics, and an early morning general education class in a stuffy room that smelled faintly of peppermint and carpet glue. Each subject had its own notebook. My handwriting was neat and precise. My phone had a color-coded calendar that looked like a little stained glass window of my life. Paydays were exciting. I handed over whatever I could. Financial aid helped a lot, but the rest came from diner tips and long shifts. The work was exhausting, but it was mine. For the first time, my life belonged to me. I made choices and I saw results. I could pay for rent, buy groceries, and keep the lights on. I could survive on my own. Sometimes I thought about my family. Sometimes I wondered why they hadn't noticed me. But most of the time I didn't think about them. I focused on building my life. I learned how to cook things that weren't instant noodles. I learned how to budget my money. I learned how to talk to people without shrinking. I learned how to breathe in a quiet space that felt safe. Ronan and I settled into a rhythm. He would play guitar. I would cook dinner. We would talk sometimes, mostly about small things. The apartment wasn't perfect. The floors creaked. The heater sputtered. The ceiling was stained. But it was ours. The quiet didn't hurt anymore. It felt alive, like it belonged to me. The diner became a small world of its own. Olive, the cook, was like a giant with warm eyes. She taught me how to flip bacon without burning it and how to treat tables like they were family. Chester, the owner, loved toast and numbers. That was the rule. I learned quickly. I learned fast. I learned that hard work mattered. I learned that people could care without comparing me to anyone else. I was finally seen. Not by my family, but by the people around me. My life was messy, noisy, and sometimes hard, but it was mine. I had a place. I had work I could do well. I had a small apartment that belonged to me. I had a quiet that was calm instead of sharp. I had control over my life for the first time. And that was how my real life began. Some nights I was so tired that I could barely move. After working long shifts at the diner, my body felt heavy and my brain felt buzzy from the smell of coffee and fried food. I would drag myself home, hoping that I could sit down for just a little while, but my mind would keep racing. I would stare at the ceiling, thinking about all the things I still had to do. I counted minutes I didn't have. Then I'd tie my hair back and push myself to do one more thing. One paragraph for homework, one tiny piece of computer code, one math problem. Every small step made me feel like I was moving forward, even if it was slow. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't graceful. But it was progress, and that was enough. I first met Daphne in the library. She was standing near a microphone with a worried frown, like it might bite her. She was in charge of the campus podcast. Her voice was smooth and nice, the kind you would hear on the radio at night. She was always smiling, always ready to laugh. "Do you know anything about audio interfaces?" she asked, looking at a big tangle of cords. "A little," I said. Even though I actually knew a lot more, I liked to keep people's expectations small. I didn't want them to ask too much of me. We spent the next hour untangling the cords and fixing the microphone. When the speakers finally worked, Daphne threw her hands up in the air like we had done something amazing. "I'm Mel," she said, holding out her hand. "You're my hero, Dow." "Talia," I said, shaking her hand. The word hero felt weird in my throat. Nobody had ever called me that before. I was just the quiet girl who worked hard and kept to herself. "Come by the studio sometime," Daphne said with a big grin. "We pay helpers with vending machine snacks." I met Theo in Computer Lab B. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like tiny bees. Theo could fix anything: printers, scanners, even people's bad moods, with duct tape, paperclips, and Red Bull. He showed me that most things in life are held together by quick fixes. "Everyone pretends the world is neat," he said one day, "but really it's just a lot of little fixes we call permanent." He was half joking, half teaching me how to survive. One Tuesday after my diner shift, Olive gave me an extra slice of apple pie wrapped in wax paper. "Take it," she said. "Counts as fruits and vegetables." I carried it home carefully like it was a secret treasure. My apartment was quiet, the heater ticking softly. I saw a little note on the cupboard. "You got this." Or 3 crooked words. Nothing big. But somehow they made me cry over a cold piece of pie. Sometimes the world doesn't give you big hugs. Sometimes it only gives you small signs that someone is rooting for you. Sometimes memories would come back and hurt. A mother kneeling to tie her daughter's shoe. A father in the grocery store choosing the name brand cereal just to make his kids smile. I would watch and then look away embarrassed. I didn't want to hate kindness just because it hadn't been mine. I wanted to notice it. I wanted to see it. Maybe I could even make some for others. When people asked about my family, I said, "We don't really talk." That was enough to end most conversations. While other kids shared holiday stories, I told stories about chaos at the diner and Olive's strict rules about toast. I got good at asking careful questions. Questions that didn't dig too deep. "Where are you from? Why did you leave? Did you try to fix it?" People like to measure pain like math. I stopped giving them my numbers. Life wasn't just work and studying, though it often felt that way. Between late nights in the lab and the clattering dishes at the diner, I noticed a guy at the library's tech desk. He was a year older than me, calm, patient, and never scolded anyone who lost a file. He fixed problems quietly like he believed everything could be fixed. He leaned over my desk one afternoon and asked softly, "What were you trying to do?" "Let's figure it out together," I said. His name was Julian. I didn't know much about him then, only that his calm, patient attention made you feel less silly for needing help. Sometimes our eyes met and I would look away first. As autumn turned to winter, my apartment adjusted to me. Cold drafts sneaked in through the windows, so we stuffed towels in the gaps. The heater made a loud, almost friendly rumbling sound. I found cheap mittens with deep pockets at a thrift store and realized pockets could hold more than just hands. They could hold a little bit of life too. Ronan and I became like family. We shared grocery bills, bickered about which cereal to buy, then secretly slipped each other's favorite cereal into the cart. After late diner shifts, I walked home through the cold, earbuds in, the streetlights blurred like tiny stars above the wet pavement. Sometimes I imagined my parents' house at the same hour. TV humming, dishes drying, lights still on. I wondered if they noticed I wasn't there. The thought came softly, almost kindly. If they did, I didn't owe them anything. Not a return. Not an apology. Not gratitude for love that never arrived. Still, the heart is clumsy. On bus rides home, I would imagine conversations that would never happen. My mom finally said the quiet parts out loud. The choices, not the mistakes. The dark birthdays. Holidays when she barely mentioned me. But my chair stayed empty in those imagined calls. He said she was sorry. I stayed steady. Then the bus would lurch, the doors would hiss open, and the dream would vanish like fog. Midterms came and exhaustion made everything funny. After midnight, I crushed my stats exam but barely passed the computer lab test when the computers crashed 10 minutes in. Theo fixed them, but it was too late for my lost work. Olive celebrated my passing grade with a pancake the size of a steering wheel. "Tell the world to watch out," she said, flipping another. "You're a quiet freight train. By the time they notice, you're already gone." That line stuck with me. Later, sitting cross-legged on my futon with half an essay open and soft music humming in the background, I thought about what she meant. A quiet freight train doesn't wait for claps or permission. It just moves, steady and unstoppable, already on its way. My wins came quietly. A bill paid on time, homework finished neatly, a kind word from someone who didn't owe me anything. The silence I grew up with had always felt like judgment. The silence I lived in now felt like freedom. Wait, safe. Right before bed my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart jumped. It was just a bus line promotion, but for a moment I felt the future. One day a message might arrive that tried to pull me back. I wondered how I would respond. Barefoot on the cold floor, I looked around at cracked walls and the old heater groaning its way through another night. If I answered, who would I become? I smiled, switched off the lamp, and slipped under the covers that still carried faint traces of detergent and diner grease. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. Whatever came next would have to chase to catch up. Outside the city breathed. Inside I finally slept. By the time I turned 20 I had changed a lot. I finished my associate's degree and transferred to a 4-year university. I balanced a part-time job at the campus library with small freelance projects on the side. The library wasn't glamorous, resetting logins, rescuing students from printer problems, but it was steady and I liked its quiet rhythm. Freelance work filled the gaps. Small websites for local charities, dashboards for community programs. Work that mattered even if my name never appeared on it. Most nights I came home tired, but it was the good kind of tired. Tired means progress. When Ronan and I had overlapping hours we shared simple dinners. Sometimes Julian, the calm, unflappable tech guy, walked me home. The glint of his old, dented wristwatch caught the light as we talked. We weren't officially together, but his presence fit beside mine in a way that didn't ask me to shrink. 2 years had passed since I left home. 2 years of learning, growing, surviving, and quietly becoming someone my younger self might not have recognized. Life had been full of tiny victories. Pie that made me cry. Cords untangled. Printers fixed. Random notes that said, "You got this." Small moments, little signs, kind gestures, and unexpected help. Slowly they built a world I could live in. Slowly they built me. By the time I closed my eyes at night I could feel it. A quiet freight train had been moving all along, steady, unstoppable, already halfway to somewhere new. 2 birthdays went by without anyone noticing. 2 Christmases came and went, but nobody said a word to me. 2 whole summers passed without even a single message from them. Then one evening I was sitting at my desk looking at my notes trying to finish some homework. My phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in a very long time. Dad Mobile. For a moment I thought I was imagining it. My heart started pounding so fast I could hear it in my ears. My hands felt frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't answer. Not after 2 whole years of absolute silence. I just watched the phone buzz over and over until it finally stopped. Then a voicemail came. I pressed play, my hands shaking a little. "Hey, it's me. Dad. We were just wondering how you've been. You haven't been around in a while. Mom's been asking. Anyway, call us back." That was it. Just a few words. They sounded stiff, empty, like he was reading from a script he didn't even remember writing. No warmth, no, "I'm sorry," no mention of the birthdays I had spent alone or the dinners where my chair sat empty. It was just someone pretending that being gone for 2 years was normal. I didn't call back. I just held my phone in my hands, like holding a knock on the door that I had no intention of answering. Felt almost like home, but not really. Something inside me started to simmer, slowly, quietly. Not the kind of anger that explodes, but the kind that grows deep under your chest and makes your ribs feel tight. They hadn't realized I was gone until now. Why did they suddenly remember me? 2 days later another message came, this time from Anya. "Hey, Dad's been trying to reach you. You should call him. It's important." No explanation. Just a short order. Like I was still the invisible sister who was supposed to listen and obey. I didn't reply. Instead I opened her profile. There she was, smiling in a string of bright pictures. Holiday dinners, matching sweaters, and Ezra in between our parents like I had never left. They looked so happy, so complete, like I had been erased from their family photo. And now they wanted something from me after 2 years of nothing. I put my phone down, but my thoughts spun like storm clouds. I didn't block them. I didn't need to. They had already cut me out once. I had rebuilt my life without them. But the question lingered in my mind like smoke I couldn't blow away. What do they want? Could it really be me? Not anymore. That night I dreamed about the old house. The door opened into the dining room. My chair was waiting, empty as if for a ghost. But when I stepped forward, it disappeared. The rest of the family laughed and ate, raising their glasses as if I had never existed. I called out, but no sound came from my mouth. When I woke up, my pillow was wet with tears. 2 days later, another message arrived from Dad. This time it was a blurry photo of the house, like a cheap postcard from a place that no longer felt like home. I deleted it without opening it. If he thought a picture could pull me back, he didn't understand. That wasn't home anymore. I wasn't lost. I had simply stopped waiting to be found. Still, something restless stayed inside me. Julian noticed before I said a word. We were walking across the campus, the snow crunching under our shoes. He glanced at me with soft eyes. "You've been quiet," he said, his voice gentle like the snowfall. "It's nothing," I said at first, then hesitated. His expression was calm, patient. He didn't push me. He just walked beside me, letting me think and feel without interruption. "My dad called," I said finally. "First time in 2 years." Julian slowed down, matching my pace. "What did he say?" "That he was wondering how I've been," I answered, letting out a little laugh that felt empty. Like I had just forgotten to go home one weekend. He didn't correct me or try to comfort me. He just slid his hands into his pockets and walked beside me. I stared at the white flakes melting against my coat and whispered, "I don't think they want me back. They want something, but I don't know what yet." Julian didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The silence between us wasn't the old kind, the one that hurt. It was the kind that made space while the snow kept falling. I shoved my hands deeper into my coat pockets, trying to hide the little tremble in them. For the first time since I left, the old fear stirred inside me again. The one that whispered no distance is ever far enough to escape their shadows. I didn't know if I was ready to hear whatever it was they suddenly needed to say. By Friday, the messages had piled up like unopened mail. Dad's stiff voicemails, Anya's short nudges, all circling the same empty point. No apology, no real words, just abrupt urgency, as if 2 years of silence could be erased with, "Now you have to come." First I ignored them. But curiosity is sharp and sneaky. I wanted to see how long they would keep reaching before saying something real, something that sounded like they were truly sorry. But those words never came. Then came one more message from Dad. "We should talk. Just 1 hour, please." So I agreed. Not to make peace, but to get answers. I picked a cafe halfway between my world and theirs. Public, quiet, neutral. I even told them the rules in my reply. 1 hour, that's it. The morning of the meeting, my stomach twisted and turned. Julian noticed as we walked across the library lobby. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" he asked, his voice soft and calm. "I'm not sure at all," I admitted. "But I need to know what they really want." He held my hand firmly. "Then make sure you leave with answers, not guilt." By the time I walked into the cafe that afternoon, the smell of roasted coffee beans hit me like a wave. It grounded me but also made me feel a little sick at the same time. My nerves buzzed under my skin. I saw him right away. Dad looked smaller than I remembered. The years had changed him. His hair was more gray. His shoulders slumped, like he was carrying a heavy weight he didn't know where to put. I didn't stand. I just stayed in my seat, earbuds hanging around my neck, forcing him to make the first move. He hesitated, caught somewhere between a smile and an apology, then settled on a strained grin. "Hey Talia," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look good." I gave a small nod but said nothing. He ordered a coffee. I didn't. I just laced my fingers together on the table and waited. After a moment, he cleared his throat. "It's been a while." I raised one eyebrow. "A while? That's what you call 2 years of being gone?" "We were surprised when you left," he continued. "You didn't say anything." The word, surprised, hit me like a slap. I disappeared for 2 years and that was their big takeaway? He shifted uneasily in his seat. "We thought maybe you were staying with a friend," he added quickly. Then, the months passed and it got harder to reach out. That was it. That was their reason for vanishing. He went on, filling the air with stories about how the house hadn't felt the same, how Anya had been busy, how Ezra missed me in his own way. Every word sounded like a script for someone else, not for me. And the one thing I really wanted, the one thing that mattered most, was missing. An apology. Finally, I couldn't keep quiet. "Why now?" I asked. His fingers tightened around his coffee cup. "What do you mean?" Why reach out after 2 years? What suddenly changed? He looked down at the table, fiddling with his hands. Then he said it quietly, finally, "Your grandmother passed away. Things have been tense. We're trying to reconnect." And there was. Not about me. Not about the silence, the neglect, or the years I spent waiting for a call. Just another family problem. They didn't want me back. They wanted a missing piece to make their family picture look whole again. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of it sink into me. "I'm sorry about Grandma," I said quietly. "But I'm not the person you call to fix what's broken anymore." His mouth opened like he had something he wanted to say. Maybe it was a fancy thing, a perfect sentence he had practiced. But I didn't let him get the words out. I stood up, and the chair made a loud scraping noise as it moved across the floor. "You didn't check on me when I left," I said quietly but firmly. "You didn't even ask if I was okay. So no, I'm not here for closure. I'm here to tell you I've moved on." The sound of the chair scraping seemed to echo in the room long after I walked out. I put on my jacket, passed the counter where the barista was making coffee and frothing milk, and stepped outside into the cool, crisp air. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel like I had one. I felt something quieter, something calm and steady. For once, I didn't need him to tell me I was doing the right thing. I knew exactly where I stood, and that made me feel stronger. The next morning, before I even got out of bed, my phone buzzed. A new message from my dad appeared on the screen. It said, "We should have handled things differently. Your mom wants to see you too." I stared at the phone, waiting to feel the old sadness or hurt. But it didn't come. I felt calm, almost like I was floating above the situation. There was still no apology, no real words saying they noticed all the years I felt invisible. Just another message trying to pull me back in. An hour later, Anya sent a message too. "Dad's hurt. You didn't have to be so cold." I almost laughed at the word cold. I had spent my whole life giving my family love and patience. I had tried to make them happy. I had done everything I could to be kind. And now that I had finally stopped giving them pieces of myself, they called me cold. Well, not cold. Finished. Done. That night I sat at my desk. My laptop glowed softly in the dark. I read their messages over and over, once, twice, 3 times. Then I opened a blank reply. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I wrote, "I hope you and Mom are well. I've built a life I'm proud of. I'm not interested in reopening old wounds. Please respect that." I read it 3 times. Calm, steady, final. Then I pressed send. No long explanations. No stories from the past. Just boundaries. Quiet, clear, final. When I turned off my phone, the silence didn't feel heavy like it usually did. It felt light. It felt soft, like a blanket lifting off me. It felt like peace. That weekend I let myself feel that peace. Julian came over, carrying grocery bags that looked like they were about to split open. "You didn't have to get all this," I said as he set the bags down. "Didn't have to," he said with a small smile. "Wanted to." We cooked together in Ronan's small kitchen. The space was cramped. Our elbows brushed against each other as we moved. Julian chopped vegetables carefully while I stirred sauce that kept spilling over the edge of the pot. At one point he reached over and wiped a spot of tomato off my cheek with his thumb. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. It wasn't fancy. The pasta came from a box. The bowls were chipped. The heater groaned like it wanted attention. But it was real. It was ours. After dinner, Ronan wandered in with his guitar, playing a soft tune. Julian and I stood at the sink washing dishes side by side. The kitchen was warm with steam and quiet with life. Later, lying on my futon, I thought about the 2 silences that had shaped my life. The old silence had been like punishment. It was empty, cold, a place where love should have lived but never did. The new silence was different. It was freedom. It was space I could fill with my own choices. My own people. My own worth. And I knew no matter what my family said or did next, I wouldn't go back. Weeks passed. The calls from my family slowed and then they stopped completely. No more voicemails from Dad. No more vague texts from Anya. At first the quiet made me uneasy. It felt like waiting for a storm after seeing lightning. But the storm never came. Slowly I realized I didn't miss it. For the first time, silence wasn't something I had to survive. It was something I could rest in. My days found a rhythm. I drank coffee in the morning while Ronan's guitar hummed softly nearby. I went to classes at the university. I spent late nights coding for small charities helping people who needed it. I walked home quietly with Julian after his library shifts. His watch caught the streetlights as we walked. We talked about everything. AI diner recipes. How to keep noodles from sticking in the pot. And it never felt boring. It was easy. Steady. One night, sitting on the fire escape with Julian looking at the city lights below, I finally said what I had been carrying for years. I told him I used to think I needed an apology to move on. If they had ever said the right words, if they had admitted what they did, I thought I would finally be able to breathe again. Julian didn't say anything. He just listened. Quite steady. His attention was like a small gift, a quiet mercy. But I understand now. Healing doesn't always come from someone else saying sorry. Sometimes healing comes from choosing not to explain yourself anymore. From building a life that doesn't need anyone's approval. He nodded, a small smile on his face. Sounds like you've already made that choice. He was right. I started noticing it everywhere. Back then, everything my family did came with strings. A ride somewhere meant I owed thanks later. A meal meant I had to show huge gratitude. Every kind thing they did became proof of their generosity and a debt I was expected to carry. Now kindness was simple. Free. Mel would drop snacks off when I studied too long in the podcast booth. Theo patched my laptop fan with duct tape and a wink. And Julian showed up because he wanted to, not because he needed me to complete some family picture. I rarely mentioned my parents. When people asked, I said, "We don't talk." Most people left it alone. A few didn't, but I gave them a look that stopped their questions before they could go too far. One afternoon, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent a message. "Hope you're doing well," they wrote. I answered politely and put my phone aside. No tug. No guilt. No pull back to a life I had already outgrown. Their orbit had lost its hold. Sometimes late at night, I wondered what it would have been like to grow up in a family that truly saw me. A mom who remembered birthdays. A dad who cared about my day. Sisters who didn't treat me like I was invisible. But then I looked around me. A kitchen filled with laughter. A degree nearly finished. A future I had made myself. I wasn't defined by what I had missed. I was made by what I had built. And it was enough. Every now and then, Anya's posts would appear online. Another family dinner. Another smiling picture. Another holiday photo. The same polished version of togetherness. But this time I didn't feel angry. Not even resentment. Just distance. Like watching strangers out the window of a moving train. Shapes I once knew fading as I moved farther away. I hadn't left to hurt them. I had left because I finally understood that I deserved more than being invisible. And I found it. Not in another family. Not a big apology. But in the quiet choice to stop waiting for others to tell me I mattered. I chose to live freely without looking back. That night, I stood by the window of my apartment. The city lights spread out below me like a constellation drawn just for me. The heater ticked steadily. From the next room, Ronan's guitar played softly. Somewhere in the echoes of the day, Julian's laugh lingered. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt whole. I looked out at my little world, glowing and quiet, and I understood something very important. I hadn't been lost. I hadn't been missing. I had simply found myself. I had finally found my own place in the world. I had built it. I had filled it with people who loved me because they wanted to, not because they had to. I had built a kitchen that smelled like food and laughter. A home that felt alive. I had built friendships that were steady and real. I had built myself, and that was enough. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need validation. I didn't need proof that I mattered. I had proof. It was in every kind word. Every shared meal. Every quiet night sitting on the fire escape. Every laugh, every song, every small act that showed love freely given. For the first time, silence wasn't scary. Silence was my choice. My peace. My life. And that was the greatest gift of all.